Behind every legend lies a reason. This is Myth and Motive.
Her hands trembled as she peeled the damp, yellowed paper from the telephone pole, the faint scent of mildew and something metallic clinging to her fingers. The child's face in the photo stared back, but the eyes had been meticulously scratched out, leaving only ragged, black voids where innocence should have been. A low, wet scratching sound began from the other side of the pole, like nails dragging slowly through wet soil. The air grew thick and sour, carrying the unmistakable tang of ozone and decay, as if a storm in a grave had opened at once. From the darkness, a small, pale hand emerged, its fingers stained with dirt, and gently tapped the space on the poster where the child's eyes had been. A whisper, too close and too dry, breathed directly into her ear. "You found me." Every muscle locked. She couldn't scream, couldn't turn, could only feel the icy, sticky press of a small forehead against the back of her neck. The poster slipped from her numb fingers, fluttering down to the wet ground as the world narrowed to that single point of impossible, freezing contact. And the face on it was yours? Not a child's face that merely resembled yours. Your adult features, unnaturally grafted onto a little girl's body. And the person who placed it there, the man sleeping next to you every night, was the face on that weathered, missing poster. The paper was torn down by an unseen hand, leaving only the faint smell of damp ink and decay. That cold, damp touch you felt in the dark wasn't just the sheets, it was the same hand that now held the evidence of who he truly was. A wedding ring glints, catching the light with an almost cruel brilliance. This is Sarah's waking horror, a reality more terrifying than any dream. The truth she uncovered began to unravel the very fabric of her life, a foundation built on a deception so profound it defied belief. The backstory starts in a place of deceptive warmth. In their Columbus kitchen, Sarah's laughter mingled with Mark's as they decorated a cake, warm light spilling across the frosting. They had met at a Chicago wedding, where his calm, grounded demeanor as a financial advisor instantly drew her in. Now, in this picture-perfect home, every shared smile felt like a promise of the safe future she had always imagined. Yet, beneath the cozy surface, a faint, metallic scent lingered in the air, a ghost of something not yet understood. He claimed to be from a remote Oregon town, an only child with deceased parents, a clean slate. For Sarah, who carried her own complicated family history, it felt like a reprieve. Their love story unfolded quietly, almost too perfectly. A faint scent of damp earth and old paper lingered in their apartment, unnoticed. Sarah found comfort in his uncomplicated past, a stark contrast to her own tangled roots. Their relationship was a sanctuary of calm, free from drama or suspicion. But in that quiet perfection, the air sometimes grew unnaturally still, thick with unasked questions. The only sound was the persistent drip of a leaky faucet in the next room. He was a ghost of a man, with no past to haunt him and no family to call. To Sarah, this emptiness was a gift, a blank page for their future. Their days together were a serene, whispered promise, yet his touch was always cool, even in summer, leaving a faint, metallic trace on her skin. This seamless narrative he offered, the orphaned son from a forgotten town, was a relief she didn't question. Their bond was a silent pact, built on absence and trust. But in the deepest night, a soft scratching would sometimes echo from within the walls, as if something were trying to get out. 2 years later, they were married and bought the Columbus house. They began trying for a baby, their future appearing as a straight, sunlit road ahead. Yet, the air in their new home carried the faint, metallic scent of old pipes and dust. At night, the house settled with groans that sounded less like wood and more like whispers. Sarah smiled at vacation photos on her laptop, the glow warming her face as Mark brought her coffee and kissed her head. The first fissure in their reality appeared 6 months ago, a hairline crack she nearly dismissed. Mark had claimed a business trip to Denver, but Sarah later discovered a receipt in his jacket pocket. The diner wasn't in Colorado. It was in Biloxi, Mississippi, 1,000 miles from where he said he'd be. When she questioned him, he dismissed it with a laugh. A client had altered arrangements at the last moment. His conviction was absolute. Sarah suppressed the creeping suspicion. Isn't trust the bedrock of love? Last Tuesday, as Sarah was returning from a client visit, a sudden storm forced her off the highway into the unfamiliar town of Milford. The air carried the metallic tang of ozone as she navigated the slick, empty streets, each turn taking her deeper into the unfamiliar town. With her gas gauge nearing empty, she pulled into the convenience store's lot, an island of weak, flickering light in the encroaching darkness. The damp chill seeped through her jacket as she stepped out into the downpour, every instinct whispering that she shouldn't be here. As she filled her tank, a flicker of movement snagged her attention. Taped to the side of a weathered phone booth was a cluster of sun-bleached flyers, lost pets, garage sales, and one poster that screamed, "Missing," in stark, unforgiving letters. The air around the booth felt unnaturally still, carrying a faint, metallic tang. The flyer was sun-bleached and rain-stained, its edges curling from the elements. The ink had bled slightly, but the words remained stark and clear. "Have you seen me? Lily Grant." AGE-6, a faint scent of damp paper and old ink clung to it, carried on a cold, still breeze. The silence around the pole felt thick, broken only by the distant, hollow drip of water from a gutter. It wasn't just a question on paper. It was a plea, frozen in time, waiting in the gathering dark. The photo showed Lily Grant, a little girl with blonde curls and bright blue eyes, missing since June 2011. Her smile was sweet, but something about the image felt wrong. The lighting was too flat, casting no real shadows, and the proportions, they were just slightly off. In a way that tightened the stomach, Sarah leaned in, her pulse beginning a slow, heavy drumbeat against her ribs. Those familiar blue eyes stared back, that precise curve of the smile, the exact shade of her blonde hair. The air grew thick with the scent of ozone and old perfume. The image was a digital abomination. Her own graduation face grafted onto a child's body. Her hands trembled as she peeled the poster from the glass, the adhesive making a sickly, sticky sound. The air smelled faintly of ozone and old paper as she folded the image with jerky, mechanical movements. She took it, a cold dread solidifying in her chest. The drive home was a haze of streetlights and racing thoughts. She confronted Mark the moment he crossed the threshold, slamming the crumpled paper onto the cold marble island. His reaction wasn't confusion. His expression remained unnervingly placid. It wasn't shock either. Just a heavy, knowing stillness that made the air feel thick. Panic seized him. Raw, unadulterated terror that choked the air. Then, as if a switch flipped, a cold, deliberate calm slammed down like a wall. The air in the room grew thick with the static scent of ozone and the faint metallic tang of fear. Mark. It's a sick prank, Sarah. Some Photoshop freak. Mark could only look away, his voice a hollow echo. You have to ignore it. But that night, Sarah refused to look away. Where he saw a mystery to avoid, she saw a trail to follow. The air in the house grew thick with the scent of old paper and a faint metallic tang. And so, quietly, defiantly, Sarah became the detective Mark never expected her to be. Sarah sits hunched before her monitor, its sickly blue glow painting shadows across her face. Her fingers tap a search into the void. Lily Grant missing 2011 Mississippi. She scrolls through grainy, archived news clippings, the air thick with the smell of digital dust. One image freezes her. A local news photo. A weary woman stands beside a man whose face is deliberately turned from the camera. Lily Grant was real. She vanished from a playground in Biloxi. The investigation eventually stalled, growing cold as the days stretched into months. In desperate media interviews, Eleanor Grant's pleas for help carried the faint, metallic scent of tears. Her husband, Mark G. Henderson, remained a ghost in the periphery, his face a rare and unsettling absence from the family photos. When Sarah learned the final detail, a deep, paralyzing dread seized her, rooting her to the spot. Sarah discovered an old, deactivated Facebook profile for Eleanor Grant Henderson. The profile picture showed Eleanor with a young girl, Lily, their smiles hauntingly frozen in time. In the background of one photo, a dusty dresser held a framed picture of a man. The man in the frame was Mark G. Henderson, Eleanor's husband, and a name that now felt heavy with unspoken history. There was Mark, unmistakably him but younger. The narrator's voice dropped to a chilling whisper. He had another family, a wife, a daughter. Sarah's thoughts fractured into a panicked, breathless rush. Was Lily dead? Had Mark been involved? Why use her photograph? Each question was a jagged piece of a nightmare jigsaw. The air grew heavy with the scent of old paper and a faint, metallic hint of dread. The receipts from Biloxi, the unexplained trips to Denver. He was going back. He was still in their lives. A ghost they couldn't banish. Sarah's breath caught as she packed a small bag, the air thick with the scent of old leather and ozone. Every rustle of fabric sounded like a warning. Every zipper's pull a decision that couldn't be undone. Sarah didn't confront him again. Her face set with grim purpose, she booked a flight to Biloxi.
She found Eleanor Grant living in a small, weathered house on the outskirts of town.
The air carried the scent of damp earth and decay as she approached the silent porch. When Eleanor opened the door, Sarah saw a phantom of herself, a decade older, etched with sorrow. The air grew thick with the scent of damp earth and something metallic, like old pennies. Sarah's voice trembled as she whispered, "My name is Sarah. I'm married to Mark Henderson." Eleanor's hand flew to her mouth, but the door remained open, a threshold she couldn't bring herself to close. She slumped against it, a decade of agony etched in her gaze. Over bitter, lukewarm coffee, the truth finally spilled out. Mark had married Eleanor young, when hope still felt like a tangible thing. Lily became their entire world, until she vanished, and Mark's reality shattered completely. Then, he simply vanished, claiming the phantoms were too much to bear. Occasional money arrived, but his presence was gone forever. Eleanor, submerged in a swamp of grief and crushing debt, refused to let the case down. She kept the embers of the mystery alive by any means she could. Eleanor's voice broke as tears carved paths down her cheeks. The police had exhausted every lead. The case was ice cold. Every recent image of Lily was now a public spectacle, hauntingly familiar, yet painfully distant. In that suffocating void, desperation coiled around Eleanor's heart like a vice. A few months ago, Mark visited me. He pulled out his phone, its screen casting an eerie blue glow in the dim room. He showed me a picture, his new wife. It was you. Eleanor's eyes widened with a horrific realization. In a low, haunted voiceover, she whispered, "I saw you, and I saw Lily's eyes, her smile." The air in the room grew thick with the scent of old paper and dust. I begged him for that photo, she continued, her voice cracking. "I thought if I made a new poster with an age-progressed image, maybe someone would remember. Maybe someone will see you and recognize her." His fury was palpable, a storm barely contained beneath his skin, yet he gave it to me, his voice thick with finality. "The last thing I'll ever do." Mark handed over the photo not as a gift, but a gag. A desperate attempt to silence the truth, to secure his freedom from their shared tragedy. He used Sarah's face as his final bargaining chip, the last payment to the family he'd abandoned. Sarah wasn't just his wife. She was a tool, a patch over the gaping wound of his old life. A metallic scent, like old coins and ozone, hung in the air as the realization settled. Then, her phone buzzed. The phone screen glowed with a new message. "It's Mark. Where are you? We need to talk." The scent of ozone and damp earth crept through the room as the words lingered on the display. Sarah sat on the plane hours later, staring out at the cloud layer below, the memory of that message a cold weight in her chest. The rhythmic hum of the engines did nothing to quiet the whisper of dread that had taken root during her escape. The missing poster lay on her tray table, a silent accusation. Sarah returned to Columbus to find Mark in the darkened living room. The man she loved had become a curator of lies, a stranger in familiar skin. He spun tales of being trapped, of grief's irrationality, of unintended harm, of exclusive love, each word tasting like ozone and rot. Sarah stood motionless, her senses sharpening in the quiet. The air carried the faint scent of old paper and dust as she moved to the mantel. Her fingers brushed the cold frame, and her thoughts turned to Eleanor alone in the Biloxi house. Then Lily's memory surfaced, a child suspended forever in that dreadful moment. Her own face stared back at her from the phone booth poster, a ghost used to erase a ghost. She turned to Mark, her expression now a hollow void where love had once lived. Her voice was unnervingly calm, final. "You didn't just lie about having a family. You made me an accomplice to her disappearance. You used my face to cover your tracks." Her fingers released the wedding photo, letting it fall silently to the damp floorboards. She grabbed her car keys and the still-packed suitcase. She vanished that night. The divorce decree cited fraud, yet certain questions cling to her consciousness. They should unsettle you as well. Where is Lily Grant? Did Mark Henderson know far more than he ever revealed? If a single man can so completely erase an entire family, how can you ever truly believe you are not the next to be disappeared? The final shot. The missing child poster, now pinned to Sarah's new apartment bulletin board. Lily stared at her own name, the horror replaced by a grim, unyielding resolve. Sometimes, the true monster isn't lurking in the darkness. It's the one who shares your pillow, whose familiar warmth masks a cold, consuming void. A darkness so profound, it can devour a child's innocence without a sound. If you possess any information regarding the disappearance of Lily Grant, please contact the Biloxi Police Department.
If the legend hooked you, subscribe and open the next case.